Growing up in rural Devon, Allan worked as an actress and a corporate trainer in London and Tokyo, then as a lactation consultant in public hospitals in Addis Ababa. There she taught about breastfeeding, skin-to-skin, and kangaroo care for premature babies. She currently lives in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, with her diplomat husband, two daughters, and a large Ethiopian street dog called Frank. Open My Eyes is her first published novel. Following, we would like to present you the interview we had with the author at our reading club session on 16th of March. Good afternoon. We are delighted to welcome you here at our reading club session today.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. So this is your first novel, Open My Eyes. And
it's the first novel I've had published. I've written other novels, but I'm still trying to get those ones published.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to ask you, how does it feel to be an author?
It's great. It's a really satisfying conclusion to having put in lots of work, and it's just lovely to get feedback from people who've read the book. That's the best bit. When you, it's now a year since the book was published, but still I have people email me to say, I've just finished your book, and lovely little offshoots. So when you write something and I think you put your heart and soul into it, it makes little ripples in the world, and that feels lovely to get some of that feedback.
Perfect, nice. So some of our readers might not know much about your novel, so can you please speak a bit about it?
Sure. So my novel is set in Addis Ababa, which is the capital city of Ethiopia, and it concerns Mariam, who is a British midwife who was adopted from Ethiopia as a small girl, who returns to her birth country to work, but she's very much not looking for her birth mother, or so she believes, but a series of contacts with a strange character who lives in the streets around the hospital, and crucially with a premature baby who she meets early in the book, change her whole perspective about how she feels about herself, and sets into action a sort of train of events that sees her struggling to protect this newborn baby and coming to terms with her own abandonment years before.
And why did you name it Open My Eyes?
It's a quote from the Bible, but it's very much linked to one of the characters in the book, who is a homeless man who collects phrases and sayings from the streets and from his memory to try and make sense of his world. And it seemed to me that the book is about transformation and about beginning to see things differently. And so it felt like an apt kind of title.
Where did the idea of writing about Ethiopian midwife came from? I mean, what led you up to this book?
Well, I was working in a hospital in Ethiopia, so I'm married to a British diplomat, and because of his career we've travelled around the world quite extensively. After I had children, I retrained to be a breastfeeding specialist, and I really wanted to be able to be useful and helpful in Ethiopia. So when we were posted to the country, I ended up working in a big neonatal hospital with very small premature babies, and the book is not set in that particular hospital, but some of the experiences I had with very small babies made me feel very very moved and very angry and very sad about just how unfair the lives of these tiny babies were. And I had one particular experience where I met a very, very tiny sick baby whose mother had died, and the baby was in an incubator, very isolated in a plastic incubator in the corner of the room. And I had two small children myself at that point, and I just wanted to pick this baby up and hold her, but I couldn't because it wasn't professional. There's a particular technique that is used for looking after very premature babies called kangaroo care, which involves taking the baby and holding it next to the mother's skin to help the baby grow and develop. And I thought, what if I just forgot being a professional, and I took this baby and I held it next to my skin and I sat there for the next few months. Why can't I do that? And of course, I couldn't. It wasn't professional. It wasn't my baby. The baby was at that point too sick. But that kind of what if was the kind of spark for the book about, well, so I imagined what if, and that's what the book's about.
There is a very touching moment in your book. I would like to read it now. The baby does not cry. There is seldom crying on the critical ward. It's not that these babies do not have working lungs. It's that most often they have no one to cry for. So what advice or motivation or inspiration can you give for the women who are going to leave their babies at orphanages or at the hospitals?
Well, hopefully, as things progress with development, there will be more support to keep mothers and babies together. I hope, because really keeping a baby within its own community, in my opinion, is the best way to care for a child. If there is more support to encourage young mothers or unmarried mothers or mothers whose babies have medical problems, to try and support them to be with their babies, I think the world would be a better place. Of course, there are very extreme situations where the mother feels she absolutely cannot look after her baby. The babies in the quote you read were not abandoned babies. In the hospital I was at, the babies were admitted to the neonatal ward, but the mothers were at a different hospital. So after a while they would be reunited with their mothers if their mothers survived, but sometimes the mothers were too sick to travel to be with the babies. So in that case it felt like the babies were almost waiting for, will I be reunited with my mother?
I would like to ask now about your normal working day. I mean, during the writing process, how does it look like?
Well, if I'm completely honest with you, I go through phases of writing. I don't have a sort of typical writing day every day of the week. I do lots of other things, and I have 2 children, and I'm studying at the moment for a master's. So I wish I could say I wrote every day, but I don't. It would be a lie. However, when I am really engaged with an idea, what I do, I have a great big Ethiopian dog that came with me from Ethiopia, and I walk with him, and that really gets my blood flowing, and it's kind of a proven way to switch off your critical brain and allow the sort of creative thoughts to get flowing. So I go for a walk with him for about an hour in the morning, and I work best creatively in the morning, so I would try and sit down and write until lunchtime. And then after lunch, if I'm still writing, I would probably do some editing or some plotting. But actual creative writing, I've learnt from myself that after I've eaten lunch, my brain doesn't function properly at my age, so I don't even attempt it anymore. But quite often ideas come in the middle of the night, and I have a little sketchbook. When I'm not thinking about writing, something pops into my brain and I have to switch the bedside light on, and then I write it down. So.
Nice. Are you working on new books right now?
I've just started a new novel, and I'm about 6 or 7 chapters in, but it's very early stages. And again, I'm struggling to find the time to really dedicate to it, but that's my plan for the rest of my time here in Uzbekistan.
Final question, do you have any advice for yet to be published writers?
Yeah, just keep writing. Use every opportunity to write small pieces just to hone your skill. Just write and write and write, and even if it's writing a diary, just practice writing what you see. Keep a notebook, and if you really do want to be published, then start hardening yourself, because you will be rejected a lot, and it hurts. But everybody gets rejected, and sometimes the reasons for the rejection are valid. So try and be open enough to take that feedback, but also have enough self-belief to just keep going, because I think you know when you've got something that's that's going to affect people. And if you feel like you've got something to say, then keep saying it, and it will be important for somebody.
And thank you very much for this interesting conversation.
Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting the book group and talking about creativity today.
Yeah, we look forward also to. Thank you very much.